Ashish, it's great to have you on this panel. I've had a few occasions to interact with Ashish Rajvanshi, and in as much as he is in charge of a business which is deeply invested in India's defense sector in the process of manufacturing, I suspect that at heart he is a technologist. He looks at technology, he applies his interest in technology and sort of puts that into place in terms of the opportunities, the options that exist in India. I think it's that technology prism which is fascinating, Ashish, and I think it's a good way to actually talk about India's requirements.
Please.
The Middle East, if you take a look at what's happening in Russia, Ukraine, warfare is changing. The military systems that were relevant 5 years back are no longer relevant in some senses. In many cases, they are adapting. Therefore, when you go about the business of proposing what India needs to have, and indeed in manufacturing and in seeking orders and in building a technology base, how do you have to be quick on your feet?
Good. Thank you, Vishnu. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and listening to the Honorable Defense Minister and the Defense Secretary. See, what we need to appreciate is what we are seeing as conflicts in the global market is not new. If we go into the history of mankind, warfare has been as old as the humanity itself. And the biggest accelerator of human evolution in terms of shaping our instincts, shaping our technology, and shaping our societies have been the warfare in the past. You look at the two world wars, they actually fostered completely new industries, from machine guns to battle tanks to jet engines to nuclear bombs, and most importantly, establishing the permanent military industrial complex, which became the mainstay of how we look at defense. So we are standing at a turning point where, with the conflicts happening in Europe, the conflicts happening in Israel, but the most importantly, the shifting tides in the Indo-Pacific, the whole evolution in terms of defense has changed. What does that mean? It means India is crafting its own story. And this is, for me, a bigger opportunity than an adversity. In what way? Because we are investing in our own industry. We are investing in our own startups. For the first time, we are not talking percentage, 60% indigenization, 70% indigenization. We are saying 100% self-sufficiency. And what Honorable Defense Minister mentioned, this is no longer an option, this is survival for us. So I think what India is writing is melding the lessons of the past, working on the opportunity of the current, but we are very sure we are going to write the history of the future, working as one company, one industry, and working towards a one vision. So,
some of the lessons of the Russia-Ukraine war, which is ongoing, is in drone warfare. It's revolutionary. It's changed the face of warfare. It's raised questions, for example, on the efficacy of armored warfare. That has had to adapt. We've seen drones operating on the sea that have made the efficacy of existing naval forces, it raised lots of questions, put them essentially back in harbor. And then we've had our own Operation Sindoor. And you've had a role in terms of some of the technology. The Adani group has had a role in some of the technology that was used to actually fight this. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience and Indian systems, fighting in Operation Sindoor?
See, let's first appreciate what's happening in the technological landscape. Wars are no longer just fought with guns and battle tanks. It's important to appreciate the battles are getting shaped with data, with autonomy, and most importantly, with the control of space, what we are seeing. What we witnessed in Operation Sindoor is something which is a reflection of a cognitive warfare, which all of us need to be absolutely aware of and be prepared for. What is cognitive warfare? Cognitive warfare is the teaming of artificial intelligence, man and the machine coming together and working in a seamless direction for the same mission. This is as good as the warrior coming out of Age of Ultron, Avengers. And the whole synergy between the man and machine will start becoming more important than how effective my battle tank or artillery gun or my fighter craft is. So to your point, what is important for India? One is, how do we develop cognitive warriors? Cognitive warriors for us means that the people on the field who are able to thrive in a data-centric environment, people on the field, one of the biggest challenges we're going to face, as we're talking about loitering ammunition, we are talking about electronic warfare, is the training of the frontline personnel. Yeah, this is no longer a mechanical job of picking up an artillery gun and firing a round. This is actually you're dealing with the most advanced technology in the time of pressure. So when we're talking about cognitive warfare or a cognitive warrior, how do we train our personnel? How do we thrive in a data-centric environment where the data is beaming from satellite on a real-time basis? The AI-driven command and control centers are actually giving real-time information on both threats and the actions to be taken to the man and machine. And the most importantly, developing autonomy. Yeah? So picturize this, that you have an Indian soldier standing at a contested border, wearing similar to what I'm wearing, like a AR neural link visor, along with fully powered exoskeleton, walking along with swarm of drones, walking along with unmanned ground robots, and having a real-time interface and interaction with the backend command center. And this is no longer a dream. In 5 years, this is going to be the reality. What's important is, to your point, is the industry geared up to look at this future? Are we still looking at the 60s mechanism? Are we still looking at the same battle tanks, fighter crafts? All of them are important, but the whole integration, which is seamless between air, naval, and ground, coming into a data lake, is the future. So,
your thoughts on artificial intelligence and warfare? We see AI-enabled systems. We see small drones also have the ability increasingly of selecting targets. Going forward and continuing from your thoughts of increasingly robotic warfare, as AI evolves, how do you see the war front evolve as well?
See, I'll say the stage at which India is, or we in the global market are, we are going through a fundamental transition. The biggest transition which happened in the defense warfare was, in the previous era, was the First and the Second World War. In 1915, for the first time, we saw they moved from assault rifle to machine gun. And in 1937, the first fighter aircraft came in the public. Earlier it was flying in, but in terms of the fly-by-wire, the jet engine technology. And then we entered the whole cold era regime. What actually taught was having this mass-scale production, ability to ramp up, ramp down, but most importantly, the industry, academia, and the military integration. How do we look at the future of warfare? It cannot be episodic. Yeah? So it cannot be driven by one conversation by NDTV, which is happening in this room for bringing the services, the policymaker, and the industry together. It has to be continuous. So we don't, even as an industry, we don't need to wait for the forces to come and say, this is what I'm looking for. But this is literally a joint capability roadmap development where we are providing as many inputs to the forces as what the demand are coming from. So the first part is, how do we define a long-term capability roadmap, which is jointly developed between industry, academia, and the customer. The second part is, this is not driven by a number of RFPs which are coming out based on the whims and fancies of the person who's sitting at the chair. Yeah? We have a 15 years roadmap. So we are saying 2047, Honorable Prime Minister has given a vision that India needs to be completely Atmanirbhar in energy, defense, semiconductors. A 15 years roadmap in defense cannot be wavered based on who is in MOD, who is in forces, or who is in the industry. And we walk towards that capability roadmap. And this capability roadmap has to be a mix of what's happening today in terms of the mechanical environment and the energetics. How do we start imbibing the next generation of cyber technology, artificial intelligence technology, and the space warfare? Yeah, so,
is there or has there been a sense of disbelief within the government that here we've got private industry actually achieving the state of the art? Are you fighting mindsets?
So see, it's a very important question because we are literally leapfrogging. In 2015, there was no space for the private sector. The only thing which the private sector was doing, tier 2, tier 3 component manufacturing job, either for a global OEM or for the DPSU in the Indian market. After the push coming on Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, I think there's a significant work which has happened in the ecosystem in terms of setting up fundamental capabilities. But in the last 6 months, probably as an outcome or during Operation Sindoor, there's a narrative which is coming out that the private sector has not delivered to the expectations of the customer. I think it's too soon, too early, because we haven't given that time to the private sector. If the private sector started to participate at the platform level in 2017 and 18, it's less than 7 years. So writing the destiny of an industry participants with the short-term data, I think it's a very short-sighted way of looking at the industry. What we need to look at the success of the private sector in the American market. Lockheed and Boeing are classic examples. Look at the success of the private sector in the Nordics market. Saab is a classic example. And any of the European market where the private sector has been working hand in hand along with the government-funded R&D and the government-funded demand. So I don't see we are fighting mindset. I think it's important for the customer and the policymaker to understand and appreciate. If you are looking at Atmanirbhar Bharat in 2040, it cannot happen without the joint participation of public and the private sector.
One word question, orders.
Happening.
Is that a problem? Because you can construct, you can get in technology, you can aim for the best, but at the end of the day, somebody has to buy what industry wants or is offering to provide, assuming it meets the requirement. No one is sort of throwing up things just off. But that has always been a problem.
Absolutely.
Our process of signing contracts has been ghastly, let's face it, at so many levels. I mean, just look at fighter aircraft deals for so many years. In the past, I'm not pointing any fingers, but it has been very slow.
No, absolutely. See, when we kick-started the whole business in Adani in 2019, one of the big inputs which I received was, guys, you are late. And I'm like, why are we late? Yeah, oh, you have your peers who have been around for 40 years and 50 years. But I had the same question, what have they delivered? And what's happening in the industry which is making it so vibrant that we actually feel we are the late entrants. So what we discovered was bureaucracy coupled with distrust led to a significant delay in terms of where the industry should have been versus where we stand today. Yeah? And it's not a function of the customer didn't want to do it, the policymakers didn't want to do it. I'll say there was no focus per se on the industry because there were other important areas of education, healthcare, which were the priorities for the government. One thing which has happened with Operation Sindoor, I think we're talking the same language. Yeah? It's inevitable that in the next 5 years, if we don't work and build these capabilities, we are screwed. And I don't want to use these words, but we have seen the preparation which is happening in terms of the global market. The whole concept of globalization is out of the window. NATO no longer exists. And any conversation which is either happening in a European boardroom or it's happening in a South Asian boardroom is about localization, it's about nationalization, it's about self-reliance and Atmanirbharta. So now taking any different path in the name of bureaucracy, distrust, corruption, I think we are going on a completely wrong rail.
Supply chains have to be constant. We cannot be aiming for a war which lasts 14 days because that's our comfort level. A war can go on for years. We've seen what has happened in Russia, Ukraine. That was meant to be a one-week war. And people are still fighting now. In terms of stepping up our manufacturing prowess within the country, because at the end of the day, you can't import everything.
Absolutely.
How critical is it to be having the manufacturing base to ensure that future needs in an actual war are met?
So see, there are two parts of the question. One is, how important is manufacturing for India irrespective of defense? Today, if you look at the GDP, 55% of India's GDP is coming from services. 25% is coming from agriculture. And roughly 10% is coming from manufacturing. And what has happened in the last couple of years, we are almost reaching a point of ceiling in terms of job creation, in terms of the growth potential on the services side. So de facto, defense or no defense, manufacturing has to become a very important pillar if we have to sustain these 1 lakh engineers who are coming out of the colleges every month and to provide them sustainable employment. That's number one from an economic perspective. From defense perspective, for me, this is a leapfrog opportunity. Yeah. One thing which got proven, whether it's in Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas, Operation Sindoor, this is no longer a club which is dominated by the Western world. Again, when we entered this space, we were told, oh, you know, it's the Americans, it's the French, it's the Russians, it's the Israelis who actually know how to work in defense technology. With due respect, answer is anyone can do it. And what came out in Operation Sindoor in the last couple of conflicts, volume at the right cost with the beautiful quality is what matters more than perfecting the technology over 40 years. And in all these areas with the engineering base, the technology base what we have within the country, this is the most opportune time for India to leapfrog and take up its space in the global manufacturing, not only in India manufacturing. So we just need to invest. What's important for the industry also is, rather than chasing the orders, say we are taking a call and we are taking a bet on the long-term potential of the industry, and we are willing to invest today. And this investment has to be at size, at scale.
If there was one policy measure or initiative which you believe the government needs to look at carefully, what would that be? What would you tell them?
The most important policy measure where we are looking for a change is to stop giving orders on a nomination basis to the public sector. See, what Honorable Defense Minister mentioned in 2020, after 200 years, the corporatization of OFB has taken place, which was coming with a colonial mindset. And having done the hand-holding now for 5 or 6 years, I think it should be a level playing field where every RFP and RFI is going openly to the whole sector. So rather than saying, oh, it's only something which can, with due respect again with the people in the room, that this can only be done by Hindustan Aeronautics or Bharat Electronics or Bharat Dynamics, give us an opportunity. And if we fail, then absolutely go back to these people.
How is strategic autonomy defined by a lot of what you are saying? If you look at the case of France, the United States, when we talk about strategic autonomy, it's not just India vis-a-vis America or India vis-a-vis any other country in the world. It's also about the technology base that you pick and choose and who actually manufactures.
See, strategic autonomy is not something we can imitate. Let's take the example of US. It started in 1776 with the Springfield Armory, the whole evolution of the defense industry in the US, which actually picked up speed in the Second World War. And again, this was a complementary setup, which was the R&D funded by the government, DARPA, along with the private sector ingenuity, committed orders for those period of time, the 30, 40 years between 1920 and 1960, which actually led to a very disciplined industry being developed in the American market. The driver for the Israel was very different. The strategic autonomy in Israel was a function of adversity. So in the 1960s, with the embargoes coming, with Israel being outcast, they had to move from licensed production to innovation. So it was more a survival tactic for Israel, and hence focusing on UAVs, Iron Dome, David Sling became a very normal thing for these people surrounded by 5 different countries. For France, the whole concept of strategic autonomy was a function of centralization, both in terms of design, but also the focus on the naval vessels, the nuclear. So the key point is, what we need to learn in India is that there's a degree of discipline of the US market. There's a sense of urgency or the innovation urgency of the Israel market, and this whole centralization of France, which led to the strategic autonomy. But it has to be molded against the democratic values of India. It has to be molded into the strategic direction what the customers want to provide us. And then it's a well thought through combination of the global best practices along with what India needs.
A final question. We were discussing this a few days back, skilled manpower. It's all great to talk about all of these things. Somebody has to build it. Are our regional engineering colleges good enough? Where are you able to train people to manufacture at a certain quality, to understand the technologies? Because it's only going to go larger and larger. You need numbers of skilled workers. Where does that come from?
Good point. In terms of, see, this is the most important element in defense manufacturing and especially high-tech manufacturing. Where's the talent coming from? The foundational IQ which is required for this industry is the highest in India. So the kids who are coming out of the engineering colleges, what we are seeing have an opportunity to work in the industry are actually best in class And given the right platform, they are much superior to what we have seen in the Western market. What was not available to these people was the right platform. What was not available to them was the passion and the excitement to work for an industry which is literally building India for the future. So starting 97 until 2015, every parent sitting in the room wanted to send their kid to an IT company or to a computer science graduate. Because we want them to work for Google and the Facebook, but we don't want them to work for the BDLs and the BELs and the Adani Defense of the worlds, because they never saw a future in this. So I don't think it's a problem about the talent. It's about the longevity, the purpose, and the passion. And what I've seen in the last 5 years, there's a lot of reverse brain drain which is already happening. There's a lot of passion of these kids, again, what Honorable Defense Minister mentioned. IDEX has been such a big success because it was a platform available to these young kids coming out of the college at the age of 21, given a funding of 5 crore rupees from the government, and being given an opportunity, bring me any design, any platform, and at least you can present it to the customer. Yeah. So talent is not a problem. The will and the mindset of the people who are actually imbibing talent is a problem.
Ashish, it's been wonderful speaking to you. There's so much to learn from Ashish when it comes to technology, the potential of Indian industry, the private sector. It all has to come together, work as a system. Our threats, our challenges are very real. They're all in front of us. Will we achieve that synergy in terms of sort of mating technology with our budgets, with our drive and our understanding to bring it all together? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.